Our project is the effect of World Development Indicators on GDP in sub-Saharan African countries. Our motivation was to help guide international investment in the future, as many countries have been invested in for decades but are still in the so-called poverty trap. So the first part of this research was to look at the World Development Indicators from 1960 to 2018 for all sub-Saharan African countries. And the next thing we did is we looked specifically at GDP per capita for all of these countries over this time interval, and we noticed that a lot of countries were clustered together and that they were doing really well, and there were some countries that were still in this so-called poverty trap. So we wanted to look at this in a little bit more depth. So we looked at this graph and we wanted to see what was happening in each country that really led some countries to do well. And we saw that there was a clear threshold of 3,000 USD per capita that separated the top 10 countries from the bottom countries. So what we wanted to do is understand which world development indicators need to be invested in for the countries below the threshold to achieve the same prosperity as the countries above the threshold. So we performed a clustering analysis in order to see if we could find some similarities between the countries that were prospering and the countries that were not prospering. And what we found was really interesting. We saw that in 1990, Rwanda became its own cluster, and in all the other years, it was actually clustered with other East African countries. So we noticed that this showed a strong correlation with the genocide in 1994, and you can see that right after the genocide, there was pretty high prosperity. We saw that was partially because of an increase in exports and liberalization. And the last part of this research was we created some ARIMA models for the most prosperous countries to predict GDP per capita with an accuracy of 98%.